For years, Republicans have argued that social media platforms silence conservative views, while Democrats say they've become a haven for hate speech and racist comments. But with all that support, new legislation is still unlikely to pass in such a divisive Congress right now. But for social media platforms, being the conversation isn't something they like. They'd rather just be the platform where it's discussed. Zoe Thomas, BBC News, San Francisco.
Now, Ed Stringham is professor at Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut, and president of the American Institute for Economic Research. Joining me via webcam from Hartford. Ed, thanks very much indeed for joining us. Look, before we have a look at perhaps the nature of that order itself, this is once again the very fine line, isn't it, between providing a platform for others to express views and being seen as the publisher, the editor. What do you make of Donald Trump's point?
Yeah, so a decade or two ago, a lot of people were thinking the internet was great. It was not having to have these gatekeepers, the editors of the newspapers. It's a website. Anybody who wants to share their ideas can do so. Over the last few years, we've gradually seen a move away from that, where the platforms are clearly saying what is or what is not allowed. And at that point, I think there is some validity to saying they are expressing editorial judgment. This cannot be said, or this can be said. So there is a kind of a fine line that it's unclear where we are right now.
Right. I mean, the response from Twitter is this is reactionary. It's a politicized approach to a landmark law. I mean, Twitter has also been prepared to say of a Chinese government spokesman claiming that the coronavirus came from the US, look, fact check this as well. Exactly.
I mean, now the flip side is, once the government is now going to be involved with saying, here's what you need to do on your platform, that's also extremely problematic. So I do think Twitter and Facebook and Google should be allowed to decide who's on their platform and what's being said. That said, I think that we have to be a little bit wary of random people censoring what's out there. And Zuckerberg actually said something like that yesterday to say, who am I, or who are these people at my platform to be decided what can be discussed. In Twitter's case, their chief officer of integrity is clearly against the president of the United States, and so maybe he has an agenda. And my own opinion is when do you know? You've heard this before. When do you know when a politician is lying? Is his mouth is open. And in Twitter sphere, what are they going to do? Evaluate every single post and say, well, that's not true, that's not true, that's not true. Yeah. I think it's going to get highly politicized.
Yeah, it's a very difficult dilemma. Just one brief word. It's an executive order. Sounds very powerful, sounds as if it just happens. Got a long way to go, hasn't it?
Oh, yeah, sure. So right now, the platforms have immunity that the newspapers or television stations don't have, so they can't be sued for libel and things like that. But if they change the platforms into classifying them as the equivalent of newspapers, in the future, that would open them up to various legal changes. So, yeah, it's certainly going to be a long-term series of questions.
Yeah, when that future ends, we'll find out. Ed Stringham, thank you very much indeed. Thanks for joining us.